much for being with us.
Who, along with her brother, Richard, made up the hit singing duo, the Carpenters, died today of an apparent heart attack in suburban Los Angeles. She was 32. Records such as We've Only Just Begun and Close to You made them among the most popular performers of so-called soft rock music of the 70s. Karen Carpenter had been under a doctor's care for what has been called the dieter's disease, anorexia nervosa, but it's not known if that contributed to her death.
60 million albums, died of cardiac arrest today in a Downey, California hospital. Karen Carpenter was 32. Paramedics were called in to her parents' home this morning after she collapsed, but she was pronounced dead at the hospital. Ms. Carpenter reportedly had long suffered from anorexia nervosa, in which irrational fear of being overweight leads to compulsive dieting. The Carpenters' fresh sound brought romance to pop music in the 1970s.
Today of cardiac arrest. She was just 32 years old. A spokesman for the family said that Ms. Carpenter had battled anorexia nervosa for years. Anorexics are compulsive dieters, sometimes to the point of starvation.
Ms. Carpenter suffered a heart attack late this morning in her parents' home in Downey, California, and was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital.
Today, Miss Carpenter, along with her brother Richard, was one of the hottest pop music acts in the 1970s. She died of apparent heart failure, but it's suspected that her death could have been triggered by the disorder known as anorexia nervosa, from which she suffered for about 2 years. Anorexia victims are compulsive dieters, and the depletion of needed nutrients can lead to cardiac arrest. A 2-hour autopsy yesterday failed to turn up the exact cause of death, and now a series of pathological tests have been scheduled that will take several weeks to complete.
Shamina, Johnny Mountain with the weather, Tony Hernandez with sports, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening, everyone. Singer Karen Carpenter, one half of one of America's most popular singing duos, was mourned tonight by her family, friends, and a lot of fans. They gathered tonight at the Cypress Forest Lawn Memorial Park, where Miss Carpenter's body was on view. The 32-year-old singer died on Friday after collapsing at her parents' home out in Downey. No exact cause of her death has yet been determined, but she had been treated for anorexia. That is the psychological disorder which results in self-starvation. It's believed to have weakened her heart. Karen's brother Richard, who teamed up with her to become the Grammy Award-winning Carpenters, also attended tonight. The viewing, which will continue tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., the funeral has been scheduled for the Downey United Methodist Church at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. The funeral will be open to the public. Her burial is tentatively scheduled to be a private affair.
This is Channel 7, the #1 station for news and information.
World with her song, and now her life has become a song for the world. Those words were spoken today by the pastor at Karen Carpenter's funeral. About 1,500 of her fans waited for hours outside the Downey United Methodist Church. Her closest friends were there too, singers Olivia Newton-John and Dionne Warwick, and her brother Richard Carpenter had a lot of hugs for friends at the service. He and his sister developed a loyal following as the award-winning team, the Carpenters.
You came from where? Denver. Just for this funeral?
Yep. If there's one funeral that I didn't want to miss, it's hers. And I just wanted to drive down here and give her a farewell.
She meant a lot to a lot of people. A private burial ceremony followed the funeral at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Cypress. Karen Carpenter died Friday last week at the age of 32. Medical examiners have still not established an exact cause of death, but they do say that she died of cardiac arrest.
They were raised here and they never left. But their music traveled around the world. How far it traveled was evident by the scores of limousines who brought the famous to pay their last respects. Cameras and recording equipment were not allowed inside, but many of those who had waited in line did get in. And they heard the pastor tell those assembled, "The world weeps because Karen's story graced this world with love, life, and a song." And indeed, the music world was well represented. Among those attending, Olivia Newton-John, songwriter Burt Bacharach, and singer Dionne Warwick, all of them being attended to by Karen's brother Richard. In all, more than 1,000 people attended the services. Interment was at Forest Lawn in Cypress. It was private. Bob Navarro, News 4, Downey.
Them made the trip to Downey to attend her funeral today. More than 1,000 friends, fans, and family members turned out. There wasn't even enough room for all of them in the church. One of those people who were there was our Kim Mariner.
The world weeps because Karen's story graced the world with love, life, and a song. With those words, Reverend Charles Neal of the Downey United Methodist Church led more than 1,500 friends and admirers in an early afternoon funeral service for singer Karen Carpenter. She was 32 when she died last Friday, apparently of heart failure, although the coroner's office still has not determined the exact cause of death. Born in New Haven, Connecticut on March 2, 1950, Karen and family moved to Downey in 1963. 13 years ago, she and brother Richard teamed up as the Carpenters, and for more than a decade, their mellow sound has been heard around the world. They've been honored with Grammys and have sold more than 100 million records. On Friday, she was found unconscious in the closet of her parents' Downey home. She died a short time later at Downey Community Hospital. Her parents and brother were at her side. Karen Carpenter suffered from anorexia nervosa, a psychological syndrome that results in a form of self-starvation, but friends say she was on the road to recovery. Today, close friends like Olivia Newton-John, Dionne Warwick, Herb Alpert, Burt Bacharach, and others attended the service, and then the private burial at Forest Lawn in Cypress. The public was there too, people who were drawn by the Carpenter magic, a hometown girl who had made good.
My children went to school with Karen and Richard in the Downey High Schools and junior high.
It was important that you be here today?
Yes, I thought so.
My daughter went to school with Karen, Downey High, so I don't know. Something told me to come. I don't know.
The last time I talked with Karen and Richard Carpenter was in August of 1981. We talked about the resurgence of love songs. Karen mentioned the good feelings she got while performing before audiences.
I mean, you can feel every time you start a song, you know, like what we can do a medley of a lot of hits, you know, and everyone keys a different feeling in somebody. And they all seem to be very important, and people don't forget.
Good evening. Here's the latest at 6. The lyrics from many of her popular songs became poignant metaphors as Karen Carpenter was eulogized during funeral services today. Her life had only just begun when it came to a sudden end. Chuck Henry has more on today's services.
Some had waited outside the Downey Church for hours in hopes of getting a seat inside the chapel. Fans of Karen Carpenter, many openly grieved as if they had lost a member of their own family.
She's the best cotton-picking singer that ever trotted around the streets of L.A. or anywhere, as far as I'm concerned.
Several hundred fans were allowed inside the courtyard of the church to hear the funeral service over loudspeakers. And while the funeral was open to the public, the graveside service was not. From the church, friends like singer Dionne Warwick and Olivia Newton-John followed the funeral procession to Forest Lawn. Karen Carpenter's death at the age of 32 is believed related to a weight loss condition called anorexia nervosa. During the service, the family and friends were reminded that Karen's life has been a song to the world. And they were told that there is no place on earth today, either on record, tape, or the radio, where Karen Carpenter isn't singing. This is Chuck Henry, Channel 7 Eyewitness News in Downey.
Soft rock songs won her stardom in the 70s, was buried today near the Downey home where she grew up. Friends who met her through her work, among them Olivia Newton-John and Dionne Warwick, came to mourn the singer who died last week of heart failure at the age of 32. Pallbearers included bandleader Herb Alpert, who gave Karen her first record contract in 1969. Music for the service was chosen by her brother, Richard, who had harmonized with her on hits such as Close to You, We've Only Just Begun. She is survived by her brother and her parents. Karen Carpenter had been suffering from a physical and psychological condition known as anorexia nervosa, although doctors still are not sure if it was related to
Carpenter, who died of a massive heart attack last week. 1,500 friends and fans gathered for the church services, including a number of her colleagues from the recording industry. Karen Carpenter was 32 years old.
Her family and friends and fans today as one of God's truly talented people. Hundreds of fans stood outside during her funeral service at the Downey United Methodist Church. Only family members and friends, including singers Olivia Newton-John and Dionne Warwick, were allowed inside the church. In his eulogy, Reverend Charles Neal described the singer's life as a beautiful song to the world. Karen Carpenter died of cardiac arrest last Friday.
Karen Carpenter was really a hometown girl from Downey. Today they came to her hometown, friends, family, and fans, to attend her funeral. More than 1,500 showed up at the Methodist Church. Fellow performers Olivia Newton-John, Dionne Warwick, composer Burt Bacharach. After the service, Karen Carpenter was buried at a private ceremony in Cyprus.